The stars shimmered through the viewing port as Captain Ji-won Park stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Harmony. Her heart raced with excitement. After 200 years of dreaming, humanity had finally broken the light barrier. They were no longer alone. The message from the Galactic Council had arrived 3 months ago, and now humanity was about to meet their neighbors among the stars. Approaching the council station, announced the navigation officer. Ji-won straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Behind her stood Dr. Hyun-woo Kim, a gray-haired scientist who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. Next to him was Ambassador Minji Choi, chosen to represent Earth in all diplomatic matters. The council station was massive. It dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Towers of crystal and metal stretched for kilometers, and ships from dozens of worlds came and went like bees around a hive. Ji-won felt small but also proud. Humanity had earned their place here. As they docked, a delegation waited for them. The aliens were strange and wonderful. Some walked on 4 legs, others floated in the air. Their colors ranged from deep purple to bright silver. At the center stood Counselor Vector, the High Arbiter. He was tall and thin, with skin like polished stone and eyes that seemed to look through rather than at them. "Welcome, humans," Vector said. His voice was cold and formal. "You have achieved faster-than-light travel. This grants you entry to our community." Ji-won smiled and extended her hand. Vector looked at it for a moment before touching it briefly with 2 fingers. The gesture felt dismissive, but Ji-won pushed the thought away. Different cultures had different customs. The ceremony was grand. Thousands of beings filled the great hall. Lights danced across the ceiling, and music that humanity had never heard before filled the air. Earth's flag was raised alongside 47 others. Ambassador Minji gave a speech about cooperation and friendship. The council members listened politely, but Ji-won noticed that many of them were not really paying attention. After the ceremony, Vector led them to a smaller chamber. "Now we discuss your classification," he said. He waved his hand and a holographic document appeared in the air. "You are designated as a Class 3 emerging species. This comes with certain restrictions." Dr. Hyun-woo leaned forward. "What kind of restrictions?" Vector's expression did not change. "Class 3 species may not engage in direct trade with Class 1 or Class 2 species. You may not settle in the core sectors. You may not vote on council matters for 50 years. Your technology patents must be reviewed and approved by the council before implementation. Your tax contribution is set at 12% of gross planetary product." Minji's eyes widened. 12%? That seems high. "What do we receive in return?" "Protection," Vector said simply. "Access to council space. The opportunity to prove yourselves worthy of advancement." Ji-won felt a cold sensation in her stomach. Something about this felt wrong. "What work will humanity be assigned?" she asked. Vector pulled up another document. "Your species shows aptitude for endurance and problem-solving. You will be assigned to waste management systems, hazardous material extraction, and deep space mining operations. These are essential functions that support the council's economy." The 3 humans looked at each other. These were the jobs nobody else wanted to do. The dangerous jobs, the dirty jobs. "How long until we can be reclassified?" Hyun-woo asked carefully. "That depends on your performance," Vector replied. "The average time for a species to move from Class 3 to Class 2 is approximately 400 years. Class 2 to Class 1 takes another 600 years. 1,000 years? Minji said. "That's more than 40 generations." "The council has existed for 50,000 years, Vector said. "We must ensure stability. Rapid advancement creates chaos." The meeting continued for hours. Every question humanity asked was met with rules, restrictions, and requirements. By the end, Ji-won's excitement had turned to worry. This was not the partnership she had imagined. As they returned to their ship, Hyun-woo pulled Ji-won aside. "Something is very wrong here," he whispered. "I accessed their public databases during the ceremony. I found records of 37 other species classified as Class 3 in the past 1,000 years." "And?" Ji-won asked. "None of them ever advanced beyond Class 3, Hyun-woo said quietly. "Not one." Over the next few months, humanity began their work in council space. Captain Ji-won was reassigned to command a mining fleet in the outer territories. The work was brutal. Human crews extracted rare minerals from asteroid fields while better-equipped alien species handled easier, safer tasks. Ambassador Minji tried repeatedly to negotiate better terms. She was told to be patient. She requested meetings with senior council members. Her requests were denied or delayed. When she finally met with a trade commissioner, she was told that humanity should be grateful for the opportunity to serve. Dr. Hyunwoo made a disturbing discovery. A human engineer named Sumi Han had invented a new type of energy converter that was 3 times more efficient than anything the council used. When she tried to patent it, the council's technology board delayed the application. 6 months later, a council species unveiled the exact same technology and received the patent instead. When Sumi protested, she was told that she had no proof of original invention. This happened again and again. Human innovations were studied, copied, and claimed by others. When humans complained, they were accused of making false claims or told that similar ideas had been in development for years. On a mining colony, Commander Daehyun Lee watched his workers struggle with outdated equipment while council species nearby used advanced tools. When he requested better equipment, he was told that Class 3 species must purchase upgrades at full price. The cost was impossible to afford given their tax burden. Back on Earth, people began to question whether joining the council had been a mistake. Videos from the colonies showed humans working in dangerous conditions, while aliens supervised from safe distances. Reports of discrimination spread. A human trader was beaten by alien customers who refused to buy from Class 3 scum. The attackers received minor fines. Jiwon received a message from Minji. It contained a single line: "We need to talk privately, urgently." They met on a neutral station, far from council monitoring. Minji looked tired. She had aged years in just months. "I found something," she said, sliding a data chip across the table. "Records that Counselor Thesseron leaked to me. He's one of the few who seems to have a conscience." Jiwon loaded the chip. Her face went pale as she read. The council had done this before. Not once or twice, but 23 times over 4,000 years. Every time a new species achieved light speed, they were welcomed with ceremony and promises. Then they were classified as Class 3. Then they were exploited. Their labor was taken. Their inventions were stolen. Their dignity was stripped away piece by piece. Some species had tried to resist. They were crushed economically, their trade routes blocked, their colonies isolated until they submitted or collapsed. Other species had accepted their fate. They remained Class 3 forever, generation after generation, believing that advancement would come if they just worked harder, just waited longer, just proved themselves more worthy. "It's a system," Hyunwoo said when Jiwon showed him the data. "A system designed to extract everything from emerging species while giving them nothing but hope." Jiwon looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity's children were working in mines and waste facilities, believing they were building a better future. They were wrong. They were building someone else's future. "We need to tell everyone," she said. "That might start a war," Minji warned. "No," Jiwon said quietly. "But it might start something else." 7 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. 7 years of promises, 7 years of waiting, 7 years of watching their hopes slowly die. Commander Daehyun Lee stood in the control center of mining station Kepler 442, deep in the outer rim of council space. Through the window, he watched human workers in aging pressure suits chipping away at asteroid rock. The work was dangerous. Every month, someone died. Last week, it was a young man named Kwan, an equipment failure, a suit breach, gone in seconds. Daehyun had filed a report requesting better safety equipment. The council denied it. The reason given was always the same. Class 3 species must demonstrate fiscal responsibility before accessing advanced resources. But fiscal responsibility was impossible when the council taxed them at rates 10 times higher than other species. Humanity paid 12% of everything they earned. The next lowest rate was 1.2%. When Daehyun questioned this, he was told that emerging species required more administrative oversight and therefore must pay more. It was a trap, a perfect legal trap. On Earth, engineer Sumi Han worked in a waste processing facility in the Pacific sector. She was brilliant. Her colleagues said she was the smartest person they had ever met. But brilliance meant nothing to the council. She processed alien garbage because that was the job assigned to Class 3 species. At night, in her small apartment, Sumi worked on her own projects. She had just perfected a quantum battery that could store energy at densities previously thought impossible. It would revolutionize power systems across the galaxy. She submitted her patent application with hope and excitement. The Council Technology Board took 6 months to review it. Then they sent a rejection. Prior art exists, the letter said. Application denied. 2 weeks later, a council species called the Vrexy announced a breakthrough, a quantum battery with the exact specifications Sumi had submitted. They were hailed as geniuses. Their stock prices soared. Sumi filed a complaint. It was dismissed. She filed an appeal. It was ignored. She was not the first. Over 7 years, humanity had submitted 4,216 patent applications. 308 were approved. The rest were either rejected or delayed until a council species claimed the same invention. When humans protested, they were told that great minds think alike and surely they should be happy that progress was being made, regardless of who received credit. But credit meant money, credit meant advancement, credit meant power, and humanity received none of these things. Councillor Taeyang Yoon sat in his office on the council station, reviewing the latest reports from human colonies. The numbers were devastating. Poverty was spreading. Medical care was declining. Education systems were struggling. The tax burden was crushing them. He had tried to negotiate. For 7 years he had attended meetings, filed petitions, and made speeches. The council listened politely and did nothing. When he grew more forceful in his demands, he was warned about disturbing galactic harmony. When he persisted, he was removed from 3 committees and his office was relocated to a smaller, dimly lit room in the lower levels of the station. The message was clear: accept your place or be removed entirely. Young Hanasong was 16 years old when she watched council security forces drag her parents away. Her mother and father had invented a new medical scanner that could detect diseases years before symptoms appeared. They had been so proud. They submitted their patent and waited. The council approved it immediately. Her parents celebrated. Then they read the fine print. The patent had been approved, but ownership had been transferred to a council oversight board for the benefit of all species. Her parents would receive a small licensing fee, 0.03% of profits. They protested. They filed legal challenges. They spoke to media outlets. That was when the security forces came. The charges were inciting unrest among Class 3 populations and spreading misinformation about council procedures. Hana's parents were sent to a detention facility. She was placed with distant relatives. She would never forget the look on her mother's face as they took her away. It was not fear. It was rage. That rage now lived in Hana too. Across human colonies, similar stories played out. A trader named Jinwoo had his ship impounded because he sold goods directly to a Class 2 species without council authorization. The fine was more than his ship was worth. A scientist named Yoonji had her research lab shut down because her work competed with council research. Priorities. A farmer named Bora lost her land when the council rezoned her colonies. Territory for strategic resource development. The council took everything. They took labor, ideas, dignity, and hope. And they did it all through laws and regulations that were technically legal but fundamentally unjust. Commander Daehyun received a message one day that changed everything. It was from Captain Jiwon Park, now leading a scattered network of humans who were quietly gathering information. The message contained a document. It was old, written in a language that predated the current council by 2,000 years. It was a warning. A species called the Torvin had once been part of the council. They had been Class 3. They had worked and waited for 900 years. Then they had tried to organize. They demanded better treatment. They refused to pay taxes until they received equal rights. They went on strike. The council's response was brutal. Trade routes to Torvin space were blocked. No food, no medicine, no supplies. Within 2 years, the Torvin civilization collapsed. Billions died. The survivors surrendered unconditionally. They were reclassified as Class 4, a category that meant they had no rights at all. They worked as indentured servants until their species went extinct 400 years later. The document ended with a single line: obedience is survival. Resistance is extinction. Daehyun sat in the darkness of his quarters and wondered how many other species had learned this lesson. How many civilizations had been destroyed for demanding basic fairness? How many billions had died to maintain the council's power structure? He sent the document to Earth. Within days, it spread across every human colony. People were horrified. They were also angry. But anger without options was just frustration. Then something unexpected happened. A human transport ship called the Rising Dawn was traveling through neutral space when it was attacked. The attackers wore no identification and used weapons that could not be traced. They destroyed the ship completely. 347 humans died, including 72 children. The council expressed condolences. They blamed pirates. They promised an investigation. But Captain G1 had contacts now, including the sympathetic counselor Thessalon. He leaked the investigation files to her. The weapons used in the attack were council military grade. The attack had been authorized by a black operations division that reported directly to High Arbiter Vector himself. The Rising Dawn had been carrying evidence, documents that proved the council was systematically stealing human technology. Testimony from whistleblowers, financial records showing the tax money collected from humanity was being diverted to council members' private accounts. The council had murdered 347 people to hide their crimes. When G1 shared this information, something broke in humanity. It was not dramatic. There were no riots or violence. Instead, a cold, quiet decision began to form in millions of minds at once. This was not a partnership. This was not a path to equality. This was slavery dressed in legal language and diplomatic smiles. Sumi-Han stopped submitting patents. Why feed pearls to swine? Dae-hyun Lee stopped filing safety reports. Why ask permission from people who wanted you dead? Counselor Tae-yang Yoon stopped attending council meetings. Why negotiate with murderers? On Earth, in homes and offices and schools, people began asking a question that had been unthinkable before. What if we left? What if humanity simply packed up and walked away? What if they took their ships, their people, their ideas, and their labor and went somewhere else? Somewhere far from the council? Somewhere they could build their own future without chains? It was a radical idea, a terrifying idea. The unknown was vast and dangerous. But as Hana Song said in a video that spread across human space, the unknown is dangerous, but the known is killing us. Messages began flowing to Earth's government, millions of them, then billions. They all said the same thing. We want to leave. We want to be free. We want to go somewhere where our children do not have to live as servants. President Junho Kang read these messages in his office. He was an old man now, tired from years of trying to make an unjust system work. He called a meeting of Earth's government leaders. The people have spoken, he said. Now we must decide, do we have the courage to listen? The debate would last for months, but the seed had been planted, and once humans began to imagine freedom, it became impossible to accept anything less. The exodus began on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Fleet Admiral Soo-hyun Nam stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, watching as thousands of ships lifted off from hundreds of worlds. It was the largest mass migration in galactic history. 3 billion humans, 847 colonies, 16,000 ships, all heading into the unknown. All vessels report ready, said her second officer. We are go for departure. Soo-hyun took a deep breath. There would be no turning back. Signal the fleet. Begin the exodus. On mining stations across council space, humans began their evacuation. Commander Dae-hyun Lee oversaw the final shutdown of Kepler 442 mining operations. But they did not just leave. They demolished what they had built. If we built it, we destroy it, Dae-hyun ordered. Leave them nothing. Humans dismantled the processing facilities they had constructed. They collapsed the mine shafts they had dug. They wiped the computer systems they had programmed. The council had stolen enough from humanity. They would steal no more. On waste management stations, Sumi-Han led similar efforts. The massive recycling complexes that humans had designed and operated were shut down. The council had never bothered to learn how they worked. They had simply ordered humans to run them and taken the benefits. Let them figure it out themselves, Sumi said as she watched the last human transport leave the station. Maybe doing their own dirty work will teach them something. Across council space, the same scene repeated. Humans left and the infrastructure they had built and maintained collapsed. Within days, garbage began piling up on council worlds. Mining operations ground to a halt. Hazardous materials went unprocessed, creating safety emergencies. The council had not realized how dependent they had become on human labor. High Arbiter Vector called an emergency session. This is sabotage, he declared. The humans are destroying council property. But Counselor Thessalon corrected him. They are destroying their own work. We never paid them fairly for it. Legally, they have every right to dismantle what they built. Vectar slammed his hand on the table. We cannot let them leave. Send the fleet. Block their path. Force them to return. On what grounds? Asked another council member. They have not broken any laws. They paid their final taxes. They returned all council-owned equipment. They are leaving peacefully. Then we will make new laws, Vectar said. But creating new laws took time. The council bureaucracy was slow by design. By the time they could pass emergency measures, the human fleet was already gathering at the edge of council space. Captain Ji-won Park stood on the bridge of the Harmony, the same ship that had first brought humanity to the council 9 years ago. She looked at the fleet gathered around her. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, a few military escorts. They were not impressive by council standards, but they were theirs. All ships accounted for, reported her officer. We are ready to cross the border. Before they could move, proximity alarms sounded. A council fleet had arrived. 30 warships bristling with weapons. They formed a blockade across the human fleet's path. A message came through. It was Vectar himself. Attention, human vessels. You are ordered to return to your assigned territories. If you attempt to cross the border, we will consider it an act of aggression. Ji-won looked at Admiral Soo-hyun, who nodded. They had planned for this. Ji-won opened a broadcast channel, transmitting not just to the council fleet, but to every ship in the region, every communication network she could reach. This is Captain Ji-won Park of Earth, she began. We are leaving council space peacefully. We have broken no laws. We have paid all required fees. We have returned all borrowed equipment. We are simply choosing to leave a place where we are not wanted. She paused, letting that sink in. Then she continued. For 9 years we worked for the council. We mined your asteroids. We processed your waste. We maintained your systems. And in return, you taxed us at 10 times the rate of other species. You stole our inventions. You imprisoned those who complained. You murdered 347 of our people to hide your crimes. Vectar's face appeared on screen, furious. You have no proof of— I have proof, Ji-won interrupted. She transmitted files, thousands of them. Documents showing the tax inequality, patent records showing systematic theft, communication logs showing council officials planning the attack on the Rising Dawn, financial records showing where the tax money really went. She sent these files everywhere, to every species in council space, to news networks, to public databases. The council survives by making slaves believe they are partners. But we are not partners. We are victims, and we are leaving. Throughout council space, other species began accessing the files. They saw the evidence. Many of them had suspected the truth but had been too afraid to speak. Now they saw that humanity was not just complaining. They were presenting proof. Vectar cut his transmission. On his flagship, he faced a choice. He could order his ships to fire on the unarmed human transports. But that would prove everything Ji-won had just said. It would show the council as the tyrants they truly were. Other Class 3 species would see. They might rebel too. Or he could let humanity go and hope they failed in the unknown. Hope that within a year or two, they would come back begging for readmission. His finger hovered over the weapons authorization button. Counselor Thesserun sent him a private message. If you fire, you will start a civil war. Half the council will not support murdering civilians on broadcast. Let them go. Let them fail. Prove you were right about them. Vectar lowered his hand. Stand down, he ordered his fleet. Let them pass. The human ships began moving forward. Slowly at first, then faster. They passed through the council fleet without incident. As the last ship crossed the border, Ji-won sent one final transmission. To any species watching, you do not have to accept injustice. You do not have to wait 400 years for basic rights. You can leave. You can build something better. If we can do it, so can you. Then the human fleet jumped to faster than light speed and vanished from council space. Behind them, they left chaos. The council's economy began to falter. Nobody wanted to do the work humans had done. Other Class 3 species began asking questions. Why were they being treated this way? Why should they accept it? Some began organizing. Some began planning their own departures. The council tried to restore order, but the illusion was broken. Everyone had seen the evidence. Everyone knew the truth. Meanwhile, the human fleet traveled for 3 weeks into unexplored space. They entered a region known only as the Dark Reaches. It was called that because Council scouts had marked it as uninteresting and had never returned to map it properly, but to human scouts it was anything but uninteresting. They found systems rich with resources, planets suitable for colonization, room to grow and build without anyone telling them they were not good enough. "Look at this," said the lead scout, showing Admiral Suhyun the scans. "Hundreds of worlds, thousands of asteroids. No one here to tax us or steal from us, just space and potential." They chose a planet in a yellow sun system. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, breathable atmosphere. They named it New Terra. As the fleet entered orbit, Hana Song stood at a viewport on her transport. She was crying, not from sadness but from relief. They had made it. They were free. On Earth, President Junho made one final act before leaving. He ordered the construction of a monument on Luna, Earth's moon. It was made of titanium and granite, designed to last millions of years. On it was carved a message in every human language. "We came to the stars in peace. We offered friendship. We were met with exploitation. We endured for 9 years. Then we chose freedom. To all who come after, dignity is not negotiable. Freedom is not a gift from the powerful. It is a right taken by the brave." The last human ship left the Sol system. The Council could have claimed Earth then, but they did not. It felt too much like admitting they had driven humanity away, so Earth remained empty. A monument to a species that chose the hard path because the easy path led to chains. And in the dark reaches, humanity began to build again. This time, they would build for themselves. High Arbiter Vector stood in the Great Chamber and looked at empty seats. 7 species had left the Council in the past decade, not to join humanity, but simply because they saw the truth and decided they could do better alone. The Council that had once governed 47 species now governed 38, and that number was falling. "The waste management crisis has reached critical levels," reported one Council member. "Garbage is piling up on 20 core worlds. We have offered Class 2 species double pay to take over the work. None have accepted," another spoke. "Mining operations in the outer sectors are at 30% capacity. We cannot find anyone willing to work in the dangerous zones that humans once managed." "Then draft Class 3 species to do it," Vector said. "We tried. They refused. When we threatened them with penalties, they began planning to leave just like humanity did. If we push too hard, we will lose more species." Vector slammed his hand down. "This is all humanity's fault. They destabilized everything. They turned other species against us." Councillor Thesrun, older now and tired of years of fighting for reform, spoke quietly. "No, we did this to ourselves. Humanity simply showed others that they did not have to accept it. In the dark reaches, humanity thrived. New Terra had grown into a massive city that sprawled across 2 continents. 2,000 colonies dotted hundreds of worlds. The human population had grown to 4 billion. And most importantly, humanity had been free to innovate without restriction. President Hana Song stood in her office on New Terra, looking at reports. She was 46 now, elected 6 years ago to lead the Human Coalition. The scared young woman who had watched her parents dragged away had become one of the most powerful leaders in known space. "The new quantum drives are working perfectly," said her science advisor. It was Sumi Han, who had continued inventing without anyone to steal her work. "We can now travel distances in days that take Council ships months." "And the energy grid?" Hana asked. "Operating at 200% efficiency compared to Council standards. Our power is cleaner, cheaper, and more reliable." Hana smiled. Freed from restrictions and theft, human innovation had exploded. They had advanced more in 13 years alone than they had in the 9 years under Council rule. Dr. Hun-Woo Kim, now ancient but still sharp, entered the office. "Madame President, we have received another request for asylum." "Which species?" Hana asked. "The Torvan survivors. What is left of them? About 300,000 individuals. They heard about us and are asking if they can join our space." Hana remembered the Torvan from the documents she had read years ago. The species that had resisted the Council and been destroyed for it. She had thought they were extinct. Their species was nearly wiped out because they demanded basic rights. Hyunwoo continued. "They have lived as Class 4 for 400 years. Slaves in all but name. They finally managed to steal ships and escape. The Council is hunting them." Hana did not hesitate. "Grant them asylum. Give them a world of their own. Help them rebuild." Over the next months, the Torvan arrived. They were broken people, scarred by centuries of oppression. But in human space, they found something they had not known in generations: hope. Humanity helped them build new homes, shared technology with them, treated them as equals. Word spread. Other oppressed species began making the dangerous journey to human space. Not all made it. The Council tried to stop them. But those who arrived found sanctuary. The Council watched this with growing alarm. Humanity was not just surviving. They were building an alternative power structure. And worse, they were welcoming everyone the Council had abused. "We need to negotiate with them," said one Council member. "Our economy is failing. Other species are leaving. If this continues, the Council will collapse." "Never," Vectar said. "We do not negotiate with Class 3 species. They are not Class 3 anymore," Thessalon said tiredly. "They are independent. They are powerful. And they hate us. We did this." But Vectar refused to admit fault. The Council tried other approaches. They sent trade delegations, which humanity refused to meet. They offered partnerships, which humanity rejected. They tried to establish embassies in human space, which humanity denied. "We will speak with you when you are ready to apologize," Hannah said in a public broadcast. "Until then, you have nothing we want." Inside Council space, reform movements grew. Councillor Thessalon led a coalition of 12 species who demanded change. They wanted to end the class system. They wanted equal taxes. They wanted fair patent laws. They wanted to abolish Class 4 status. The old guard, led by Vectar, fought against every reform. But their power was fading. More species left every year. The economy continued to decline. The Council was eating itself. Finally, after 13 years, Vectar was forced to resign. A new High Arbiter was elected, a younger member who understood that change was necessary. Councillor Thessalon was appointed to lead a reform commission. The new government sent an official delegation to New Terra. It was led by Ambassador Minji Choi, who had remained in human space and was now humanity's chief diplomatic officer. She greeted the Council delegation with cool professionalism. "The Council would like to offer humanity full Class 1 status," the lead Council diplomat said. "Complete equality, no restrictions. And we are prepared to pay reparations for past wrongs." Minji looked at them for a long moment. Then she led them to the Great Hall of New Terra's Government Center. It was larger than the Council's main chamber, more advanced, more beautiful. A symbol of what humanity had built in just 13 years. President Hana Song entered and took her seat. The Council delegation stood before her. They looked small and nervous. This was not how they were used to being treated. "You offer us what you should have given us from the start," Hana said. Her voice was calm but cold. "You come now because you need us. Not because it is right, not because you regret what you did, but because your system is collapsing and you need someone to save it." The lead diplomat started to speak, but Hana held up her hand. "Let me tell you what happened after we left. We found worlds you had marked as worthless. We built cities that make your stations look primitive. We developed technology you cannot match. We welcomed the species you threw away and helped them heal. We did all of this without you. In fact, we did it better without you." She stood and walked closer to the delegation. "You murdered my parents because they dared to ask why their work was stolen. You killed 347 people to hide your crimes. You exploited us, lied to us, and tried to break us. And when we left, you tried to stop us." The Council delegates looked at the floor. They had no defense. "So here is what we will do," Hana continued. "We will trade with you as equals, not as subjects, not as partners in your system. As equals, we will set our own prices. We will control our own patents. We will pay no taxes to you. If you agree to these terms, we can do business. If not, you can leave." "But the reparations," one diplomat said weakly. "Keep your money," Hana said. "We do not want it. What we want is for you to fix your system, end the class structure, give every species equal rights, treat your people fairly. Do that, and maybe someday we can have a real partnership. But until then, we want nothing from you except fair trade and the promise that you will never try to control us again." She returned to her seat. "You have our terms. Take them or leave them." The Council delegation left without agreeing to anything. They returned to Council space and reported what they had seen. The cities, the technology, the thriving colonies, the fact that humanity had not just survived but had flourished. The message was clear. The Council had not broken humanity. Humanity had broken free. Over the next years, the council slowly reformed. Not because they wanted to, but because they had no choice. The reform movement, led by species inspired by humanity's example, forced change. Class 3 and Class 4 designations were abolished. Tax rates were equalized. Patent laws were made fair. It took decades, and the council never fully recovered its former power. But at least the worst abuses ended. Meanwhile, humanity continued to grow. They established the Free Alliance, a coalition of independent species based on actual equality. No classes, no exploitation, just fair trade and mutual respect. It was everything the council claimed to be but never was. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim died at age 97, surrounded by friends and family. His last words were, "We made the right choice." On the anniversary of the Exodus, humans everywhere stopped for 1 minute of silence. They remembered the struggles, the losses, the fear, and then they celebrated freedom. On Luna, Earth's moon, the monument still stood. The council had never claimed Earth. It felt too much like admitting what they had done. So the Sol system remained empty, except for automated stations and that one monument. A young council member, born after the Exodus, visited it one day. She was from a species that had once been Class 3. She read the words carved in stone. Dignity is not negotiable. Freedom is not a gift from the powerful. It is a right taken by the brave. She stood there for a long time, thinking. Then she took a picture and sent it to her government with a single message. This is what we should have been all along. Back in the council chambers, now greatly diminished, the remaining members gathered. They looked at empty seats and tried to figure out how to survive. High Arbiter Thesserun, now very old, spoke to the assembly.